June 23, 1944 to mid-Atlantic, 870 nautical miles west of Cape Verde. Inside the claustrophobic control room of the Japanese submarine I-52, Commander Uno Kamio watched through the periscope as the German U-530 vanished into the darkness. The rendezvous had been flawless. 2 tons of gold, 120 tons of tin, and critical war materials were en route to occupied France. Soon, under the cover of night, I-52 would surface to begin its final stretch toward Europe at 15 knots. The sky was moonless, the sea calm. All seemed perfect. But in less than 3 hours, Kamio and his 94 crewmen would be dead. Not from a naval battle, but from an invisible enemy. One they didn't even know existed. High above, American aircraft were listening, not watching. And in the water below, strange devices floated silently. Sonar buoys, dropped from torpedo bombers, were tuning in to every sound the submarine made. These simple floating microphones would capture the submarine's final moments. The violent implosion of the hull, the screams of metal under pressure, sounds etched into wire spools, stored forever. But beyond the destruction of a single vessel, this moment marked a deeper shift, the collapse of Japanese confidence in their once mighty submarine force. The ocean was no longer theirs. Between 1941 and 1945, U.S. submarines destroyed over 1,300 Japanese vessels, totaling 5.3 million tons. That was over half of Japan's maritime losses. Japanese submarines, despite their enormous size and innovative designs, only sank 184 Allied ships, just over 1 million tons. This wasn't just a numerical gap. It was a strategic and technological chasm. Japan invested in building magnificent submarines. America built tools to find and destroy them. Japan constructed the largest submarines the world had ever seen, some capable of launching aircraft. America countered with sonar buoys that could detect submarines before they even knew they'd been spotted. One side chased technological grandeur. The other pursued scalable, adaptable warfare. What destroyed Japan's submarine force wasn't a single dramatic event. It was a slow, creeping realization. Japanese submariners began to feel something was off. They were being located too quickly, attacked with too much precision. Something unseen was tracking them, hunting them. It was a new kind of war, one where silence no longer guaranteed safety. Lieutenant Commander Nukio Nambu, captain of the I-401, one of Japan's massive submarine aircraft carriers, would later say the moment he knew Japan had lost the war wasn't on a battlefield. It came during a patrol listening to intercepted American radio traffic. He heard the ease with which the Americans coordinated vast operations, the calmness, the endless supply lines, the sense of overwhelming control. It wasn't bravado, it was infrastructure. When Japan entered the war, its submarine fleet was admired around the world. With about 70 ocean-going submarines, including models with radical designs, they were a force to be reckoned with. The I-40 class submarines were longer than destroyers, capable of circumnavigating the globe and launching aircraft from onboard catapults. They had radar, sound-absorbing hull coatings, and advanced trim systems for underwater stealth. Smaller submarines like the I-52, a cargo sub, could travel over 21,000 nautical miles. Their engineering was incredible. Their crews were elite. In the early war months, Japanese submarines played critical roles, scouting Pearl Harbor, shadowing American fleets, and striking military targets. But there was a fatal flaw in their doctrine. While America used submarines to cripple Japanese commerce, targeting fuel, food, and raw materials, Japan prioritized military targets, hunting warships that were harder to find and much better protected. This decision would prove devastating. By 1944, America had perfected an unassuming but revolutionary device, the Sonar Buoy. These floating microphones, powered by batteries and dropped from aircraft, would pick up underwater noise, propellers, machinery, even hull vibrations, and transmit them to planes circling above. They eliminated submarines' greatest advantage: invisibility beneath the waves. Aircraft no longer needed visual contact. A pattern of 5 color-coded sonar buoys could create a listening net across miles of ocean. Operators above could hear a submarine's every move. The effect was staggering. At 11:40 p.m. on June 23, 1944, the I-52 was detected on radar by an Avenger torpedo bomber from the USS Bogue. Flares lit up the night, revealing the submarine on the surface. As the I-52 dove, depth charges exploded nearby. But the real killer had just entered the water. A purple sonobuoy floated silently, listening. Moments later, the radio operator aboard the bomber heard the rhythmic churn of propellers. Now they could track the submarine in real time, not visually, but acoustically. An acoustic torpedo, codenamed Fido, was released. Guided by the submarine's own noise, it zeroed in on its prey and detonated. The sounds of the I-52's destruction were preserved: groaning steel, crunching metal, and then silence. 94 sailors, 14 passengers, 2 German technicians, all lost in minutes. When news of this reached Japan's naval command, it wasn't just tragic, it was terrifying. Aircraft could now track submarines underwater. Diving no longer meant escape. It just made you easier to kill quietly. American hunter-killer groups, like those centered around the USS Bogue, were equipped with sonar buoys, radar, and torpedoes. Submarine warfare had become a science. Japanese crews began reporting uncanny experiences. Planes appeared with impossible accuracy. Depth charges fell with surgical precision. Torpedoes tracked their movements as if they had minds of their own. They were being hunted by something far more sophisticated than they'd imagined. In 1945, Operation Barney shattered any remaining illusions of safety. 9 American submarines equipped with FM sonar penetrated the Sea of Japan, an area Japanese planners believed was impenetrable due to dense minefields. But the Americans had sonar that could see the mines. Nicknamed Hell's Bells, the system would chime when detecting obstacles. Submarines like the USS Sea Dog weaved between mines spaced just 50 yards apart. After 20 hours underwater, they emerged inside the supposedly safe haven. In just 2 weeks, they sank 28 Japanese ships. Japan's last stronghold was compromised. If the Sea of Japan wasn't safe, nowhere was. The technological gap wasn't limited to sonar. U.S. submarines had radar systems that could detect targets 20 miles away. Japanese subs didn't receive radar until 1944, and even then their systems were inferior. Meanwhile, American codebreakers, through Operation Ultra, decrypted Japanese naval communications. The USA often knew where Japanese subs were heading before they did. Japan wasn't just being outgunned, they were being outproduced, outplanned, and outmaneuvered. Masterpieces. Japan struggled to keep 70 subs operational. America built 314 between 1941 and 1945. U.S. submarines were modular, built from 140,000 parts produced across 32 states. If one was damaged, parts were ready. If one was lost, another was launched. Japan's masterfully engineered submarines were often sidelined for weeks due to lack of replacement parts. The same applied to torpedoes. The U.S. quickly corrected early torpedo flaws and introduced acoustic models. Japanese torpedoes were reliable but limited, and production couldn't keep up. By 1945, Japanese submariners weren't conducting missions. They were trying to survive. Merchant ships hugged coastlines, terrified of open sea. Many simply stayed in port. Japan's entire shipping industry collapsed under the weight of American submarine warfare. Cabinet members later admitted it was the loss of shipping, not atomic bombs, that truly defeated Japan. Of the submarines Japan began the war with, most were destroyed. Over 10,000 submariners died. The casualty rate exceeded 70%. The submarine force, once a source of pride, became a death sentence. After surrender, Japanese officers boarded U.S. submarines. They were stunned. The systems worked. The technology was reliable. The American crews operated with a confidence built not on arrogance, but on functionality. Commander Nambu said he realized Japan had lost not when Hiroshima was bombed, but much earlier, when he overheard how efficiently American forces coordinated operations across thousands of miles. Captured submarines like the I-400 and I-401 were studied, then sunk intentionally by the U.S. to prevent Soviet inspection. Their destruction was symbolic. These technological marvels, once the pride of the Japanese Navy, were now obsolete. In the decades that followed, surviving Japanese submariners helped reshape their country. They influenced Japan's post-war industrial policy, emphasizing technological precision, quality control, and system integration. Japan stopped building giant war machines and started building reliable, efficient, cutting-edge technology, from cars to electronics. By the 1980s, Japan's submarines were among the best in the world, incorporating lessons from the very systems that once hunted them. The hunter had become the learner. The story of Japanese submariners discovering sonar buoys and realizing the ocean was no longer theirs is more than a tale of war. It's a lesson. Technology, when combined with industrial might, reshapes battlefields. It decides who rules the skies, who controls the seas, and who survives the depths. The ocean did not change sides through combat, but through data, sound, waves, and relentless innovation. And in the silence that followed the I-52's destruction, a new era of warfare was born.